Hello, today I want to talk about Steven Universe, a show that I have a long and complicated history with. That debuted May 21st of 2013 on Cartoon Network, being the first we see of the Crystal Gems. Created by Rebecca Sugar, the show revolves around Steven Universe, a young boy living in the fictional place of Beach City, Delmarva, accompanied by the Crystal Gems, Pearl, Amethyst, and Garnet. They act as caretakers and mentors to Steven, that teach him about his gem powers and what forces await them. I went from a simple show about Steven, the Beach City residents, to the day-to-day and the Crystal Gem missions fighting monsters, to an intergalactic war against the Gem Empire started by Steven's mother, making Steven must find a way to use his gem powers inherited from his mom, Rose Quartz, to save the universe. I have of course started watching during season 1 and slowly started to fall off during season 2, becoming on and off with the series until the final season, which sparked my interest to catch up to the series. I have a lot of mixed feelings about the pacing and storylines of the show, but I've always enjoyed turning on Cartoon Network to watch Steven Universe marathons. I still have fond memories of the characters' antics and the brilliant songs I still listen to today. After the series ended, we got the Steven Universe movie, a nice aftermath to finally get to see the piece long fought for throughout the show, but again get challenged by another foe, Spinel, a gem run by Steven's mother, similar to all of his other altercations. That's a great message and fantastic soundtrack. Overall, really good movie that I could talk about in another video, but not to get sidetracked. But something I never did watch was Steven Universe Future, which seemed to pass me by during its airing. At the final season of the movie, I was pretty satisfied with the ending of Steven's journey, never really interested in seeing him in the future. But after rewatching the whole series, I want to give this entry a chance, so let's take a deep dive for the first time to Steven Universe Future. It acts as an epilogue more than Season 6 of Steven Universe. Of course it takes place after the movie, being 2 years after the events of Season 5 finale, with an older and more mature Steven, which is kinda hard getting adjusted to his voice compared to the previous series. The rest of the Crystal Gems getting updated designs are really cool to see. The premise and overall central plot point are helping the formerly corrupted gems and gems from Homeworld adjust to a new life not under the Diamond's rule. To facilitate their new direction in life, Steven and the Crystal Gems have set up Little Home School located right next to Beach City, a place where they can express themselves and do anything they want, as a process that teaches them how to deal with their feelings and the opportunities they have with their potential. So basically, instead of Steven using his usual one-on-one lessons to have his enemies join his side, he has a school to do that. That sees them adjust to their new place in the world and integrate with the locals of Beach City. The animation carries over from movie, having more vibrant colors and slightly cleaner animation, which is pleasant to see. The first episode introduces Little Home School fully built compared to what we saw in the movie. We see Steven guiding a formerly corrupted gem through Little Home School, where we get to see a glimpse of the work Steven and the Crystal Gems have been creating. Steven sees all the good they've accomplished by helping those hurt by the diamonds, making him recall an old foe, Jasper. Steven visits Jasper in self-imposed exile in the woods due to having no one to serve and no cause to fight for. Steven tries to convince her to join Little Home School, but she refuses, escalating the situation to a fight between the former enemies. Jasper gains the upper hand and taunts Steven about being nothing without his worthless friends. He awakens new power through his rage, turning his whole body pink, a striking resemblance to Pink Diamond, that increases his strength that helps him win the fight, making Jasper gain respect for Steven, and of course Steven apologizes for his use of force. Each going their separate ways, Jasper returning to her solitude, and Steven confused about his new ability, something that becomes a focal point throughout the series. The first episode really grasped my interest to continue watching. Want to see what plays out with Steven. There isn't really any true story arcs or underlying threads. It acts more similar to Season 1 of Steven Universe, with self-contained daily adventures of Beach City, involving Steven helping gems interacting with the residents of Beach City, compared to the multi-episode galactic conflicts of Season 5. With no true stakes but more fun adventures, reminded me of when I first watched the series and why I love it. The multiple gems they introduce throughout some episodes are great additions. Seeing the once corrupted gems that Steven and crew battled in Bubble become regulars in the background, finally get to see the main goals of the Crystal Gems be a reality. The comedy still feels similar to the original series, with quirky characters like Onion, Peridot, and my favorite Greg Universe, with a lot of new gems introduced being highlighted to some of the episodes for me. The episode guidance has Amethyst gives the gems jobs around Beach City to help them integrate with humans and get them more of a familiarity with their former purposes in Homeworld society. But Steven wants to do something new and out of their comfort zones, giving them random jobs that lead to disaster around Beach City. That teaches Steven that he doesn't always know what's best and lets the gems decide for themselves what they want to do. That's so hilarious shenanigans. The music is great, especially love the inclusion of the new theme song, which is a new version of Happily Ever After from movie. Surprisingly, there's not that many musical numbers when they burst out into song, but when they do, it's always a banger, keeping the same good quality soundtrack that Steven Universe has always executed well. Seeing some returning characters' dynamics get the spotlight in some episodes, like Rainbow Quartz 2.0, the fusion of Pearl and Steven, having to babysit and be playmates with Onion, having Peridot and Steven binge watching a teen drama together, and the episode Business Casual finally to see for the first time in this series Connie and Steven having some time to catch up at the roller rink. But due to Connie's new school friends being there, Steven feels out of place because of the conversations they're able to carry. Even though they both have different lives and responsibilities nowadays, they're still able to come together and hang out like the good old days. Pearl, on the other side, for human friends she had been making recently, even goes as far as help introducing them to Bismuth, even though Bismuth came to spend more time with Pearl and catch up. This is a great character-driven episode that I really love that you would go check out if you haven't seen it yet. The episode that finally brings back two fan favorites, Low Graduation, starts out with Steven picking up a graduation cake for the All Colors at Large's Bakery, even making conversation with them. Then Sadie walks in picking up mooncakes for her mom and talking to Large about her partner. Steven asks Large about Sadie's partnership, trying to see if Large is fine with it, but Large is perfectly okay just being friends with Sadie. At least Steven, confused and wanted to bring them back together. As the viewer seeing Large and Sadie's relationship throughout the original series, I think it was a good choice to have them both follow their own separate paths. At the graduation party, Steven realizes everything is changing and everyone is leaving going their separate ways. Seeing Large and the All Colors prepare to leave triggers Steven, making him change into his pink form, halting Large and everyone at the graduation party inside a diamond-shaped barrier. Steven had control of his emotions, blaming Large for not talking to Sadie since he's been back on Earth. But Sadie explains they've already talked and realized they had grown apart with each other, being happy for one another. Steven's barrier forms a dome, enclosing everyone inside of it, following his emotions even more, making Shep even have to point out he needs to let people live out their lives and not suffocate them literally. Steven's friends in the dome also let him know they'll always be his friend wherever they go. Steven starts to turn back to normal, releasing the dome, apologizing for his actions, and saying goodbye to Large and Sadie. He realizes he doesn't like graduation, needs to take a break from Little Homeschool. Seeing Steven have to deal with a very prominent real-world issue, such as seeing his friends eventually grow and go their separate ways and being stressed using his powers, something that's always been tied to his emotions, was demonstrated so well in this episode. A major stump for Steven is trying his best to help everyone, but realizing not everyone needs his help, really challenging how Steven views himself in the world if he isn't able to do the one thing that drives him. For example, in the episode Why So Blue, he and Lapis travel to a planet where two other Lapis Lazulis are still terraforming planets, obliterating life on those worlds. One of the former rules of Lapis when she was under Diamond Rule. She and Steven try to teach the other Lapises about the beauty of life through art and song, even inviting them to Little Homeworld on Earth. They still continue to terraform the planet, not because the Diamonds instructed them to, because they enjoy it being a major part of their life purpose. They of course don't listen to Steven, making Lapis mistake it upon herself to use force to bring them in line. Fascinated by her power, the other two Lapises surrender, with even one joining Little Homeschool at the end of the episode. That's a wake-up call to Steven. Maybe his useful, peaceful approach isn't always helpful. As we transition to the latter half of the series, it shifts a major focus towards Steven's powers that he can't seem to be in control of. That frustrates him even more than when he first developed his powers. He always had defensive and healing powers, but nothing like his new ability that turns his whole body pink. That gives him immense strength that sparks when he's upset or angry. Getting to a point where he develops telepathic powers that can connect his mind to technology. As Steven, he and Peridot try to make their own version of a TV show through Steven's dreams. Every time he does, we get an insight to his traumatic past dealing with gym ordeals. His powers act out so bad he even goes to the doctor, Connie's mom, due to the unstableness of his powers. She shows him an x-ray of his body with miraculously healed fractures, so that he's suffered a heavy toll of emotional trauma, making him realize all the stuff he's been through is not normal. Mr. Universe, the continuation episode of the doctor's visit, sees Steven spend some time with his dad doing normal human stuff, where we get an insight to Greg's past having tripped parents, and him wanting to rebel while traveling around the world making music. That makes Steven jealous, wishing he had a normal life with a normal family, making him lose some respect for his dad. His emotions become so out of control, his powers make the van crash. In the next episode, he gets lectured by Pearl about his powers, with the Crystal Gems wanting to know more about it and what's wrong with him. Steven, enraged with nobody leaving him alone, he ends up slowing down time, which is a very weird ability that I don't know if we ever seen in Steven Universe. He heads somewhere no one would think to look, and that would be with Jasper. She teaches him how to deal with his anger rather than bottle it, let it all out, which leads to a cool training montage putting Steven as physically in his pink form. After 2 days of training, he's ready for that rematch against Jasper. That's Steven not holding back, being the first time we see him using his full force. Steven continues the game that prepared him to fight. When Jasper's down defenseless, he forms a barrier of spikes toward Jasper with brute force. The screen goes black. He shattered Jasper, having to be one of the darkest moments in the show. Seeing Steven contradict his own moral standard about shattering gems and using his full force would be something I never expected going into the future. He desperately rushes back to the temple using the Diamond Aurora potion and his tears in the bathroom to save Jasper. Luckily she reforms, now referring to Steven as her diamond, something Steven never wanted to be called. This episode is one of my favorites for how it portrays Steven's character become more morally torn. That leads into the 4-part series finale with the now traumatized Steven refusing help from the gems to ask him why Jasper is at the temple, and more importantly, what's wrong. Instead of listening to them, Steven finally returns to Homeworld alone, seeking advice from the Diamonds about his powers coming out of control. One of the first things he sees is Spinel back to her goofy ways that leads the way to the Diamonds. It's quite a shock to see the Diamonds in the new role at Homeworld actually helping gems and not oppressing them. But when Yellow and Blue try to help him, nothing seems to work, so they recommend Steven to meet with White, whose new way of helping gems is allowing them to take over her body. She recommends Steven try to do. When he does it, he's repulsed to be a diamond, a great fear of his, leading him to having dark thoughts about all the trauma White has put him through, having ripped out his gem in the past. In his mind, realizing he is in control, thinks about shattering White and smashing her head into a pillar, but nearly hits his own head, losing control of White. That makes White scared and concerned for Steven, making her seem vulnerable in a way I never thought I would. Steven tries to leave with the Diamonds, but now trying to understand what's wrong, with him telling them not to follow him. He works back to Beach City to have a peaceful sleep in his bed. The next day, he tries to hide his emotions from the gems to convey that nothing is wrong. He returns to the school, still trying to insert his help when not needed, and of course it backfires, his powers nearly causing the destruction of the school. At the end of the day, he returns to the temple. Once he gets back, the crystal gems, Connie, and his dad are there, concerned about his well-being, but Steven again refuses their help, sparking him to become this giant pink monster, representing how he thinks about himself. That takes all the crystal gems, the diamonds, plus Benel, and even the cluster to go toe-to-toe with him, but nothing seems to work. Seeing that all has failed, they reminisce about all the harm and regret they have for not helping Steven. Connie steps up and devises a plan to hold Steven in place, with all the other gems giving him a giant hug and sharing their feelings about what he's done for them. He's able to transform back, having to wake up seeing everyone he loves right in front of him, which makes him sob for everything he's done. I want to transition to talk about a couple of my favorite episodes, and that would be Rosebud. Seeing the once bubbled Rose Quartz be free and want to hang out with Steven, that makes him feel uncomfortable about being around the gems that show resemblance to his mom. Another episode, Volleyball, revolving around Steven's mom, now on her pink diamond side, as her former Pearl asks Steven for help trying to heal her cracked eye caused by Pink Diamond, to the dismay of Pearl, who was reluctant to accept her friend did this. Steven must try to find a way to fix another one of his mom's wrongdoing, with Pearl aiding him down his journey. This is an emotionally touching episode about hiding and dealing with trauma. The episode Snow Day has a really cool callback to Steven Tag, seeing the Crystal Gems still treat Steven like a child from the original series. Leaving Steven wanted to be treated more like a mature grown-up, having him make the hard decision to tell the gems that he's annoyed and doesn't want to be treated like a kid. Ending with a great resolution about the gems accepting that Steven has gotten older and Steven still participating in Steven Tag at the end. That's a nice family moment, getting to see all of them play together. The series finale, titled Future, takes place several months after Steven's monster outburst. Steven has decided to move out and travel, taking some time away from his responsibilities, finally saying goodbye to Beach City, maybe for good. Having told everyone in town except for the Crystal Gems, thinking they couldn't handle it. When they work to the temple, Steven surprises them with homemade cookie cats, even making Pearl sing that infamous song from the very first episode of Steven Universe. He explains to them it's time for him to move forward in life and that he's moving and leaving the next day, but to his surprise, the gems are supportive, not all emotional about him leaving. He travels to Little Homeschool to say goodbye to Bismuth, Lapis, and Peridot. We're all emotional and sad about Steven leaving. He gives them each personalized gifts and hugs each other for one last time before he leaves. On his way back to the temple, he runs into Jasper, still wanting to serve and follow him, but Steven says he can protect himself, leaving Jasper upset and saying goodbye to him. When he gets back, he has a talk with his dad about traveling, and says his dad settles down in his old room, sort of switching spots in their lifestyles. At the end of the day, Steven says his goodbyes to the Crystal Gems, Connie, and his dad, but quickly turns back around to the gems, bursting out into tears, asking why the gems are seemingly okay with this. They reveal they've been holding back tears to make sure Steven follows through on his plan and doesn't stay back for them. As the emotional ride seeing Steven say goodbye to everyone important to him and driving into the distance to follow his new journey. That's actually the outro visual from the whole series. Now let's talk about some of the critiques I have of the show, and that would be not really focusing on the other crystal gems like Pearl, Garnet, and Amethyst as much. It would have been nice at inclusion to see them have their own episodes dealing with them adjusting to the new reality of living in a peaceful world and adjusting to their new roles. Also, the storyline of fusion between Aquamarine and Eyeball was left open-ended after their confrontation with Steven. Could have been expanded on a little bit more. I felt like we could have seen more action similar to what we saw in Season 5, or just more gym battles in general. Other than that, I didn't have many qualms about it. I think Steven Universe Future isn't only good, but a great entry that I wish I didn't pass up during its runtime. That's a nice way to wrap up some questions and storylines from the past. That built Steven's character tremendously. I'm excited to see what else Rebecca Shitter and the Steven Universe team can make in the shared world of the Crystal Gems. I would love to see more stories about the Crystal Gems, Diamond Authority, or just any other gems around the universe. I had a fun time making this video, and I highly appreciate you leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribing to my channel to see me cover more shows. Goodbye.